So we spoke about last time that everything that we see, even though to us we see many different parts, the reality is that it's one unit trying to express itself. And all the individuals in it are one unit. And each individual, all the different parts within the individual are one unit. And this unit is trying to express itself in a comprehensive perception, in a consciousness, where all the parts have its place, where there's a perfect balance. And this is represented in the cosmos and the 12 different zodiac signs that surround the sun, and they give balance between the different elements and the different parts of the year. And everything in life is like that it's created with balance. That's how you create a yesh me'ayin, where you create a spectrum that has two different extremes, and then there's a balance in the middle. And this balance can travel to different ends of the spectrum. So in all the different dimensions that we exist, it's like that there's extremes and there's always a place of balance where a person can reside, and that's where the place of unity is. So in order to unite this unity, Reb Tzodok says we have the whole Masechtas Erevin, which teaches us the differences between a Rishus HaRabba and a Rishus HaYochid, and how to make from a Rishus HaRabba and a Rishus HaYochid. Because the world now is called the Olam HaPirud, the world of separation, where everything and everybody is their own master, and they think that they have their own interests, and they think that they can find certain elements of life that are going to give them, as an individual, peace. And they're going to be able to find their own unity, separate of the unity of the klal. But the reality is that a person can never find his own unity other than the unity of the klal, because he is an integral part of a klal. He is a human being. He is an expression of the human consciousness. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the klal of the human consciousness, and the individual is the prat of the human consciousness. And the separation between the klal and the prat is only in theory, in concept. In practice, there's no separation between a klal and a prat. The klal is the klolius of all the pratim. So essentially what the Torah teaches us is that when we perceive, when we create a thought, we are creating the interpretation of life from the very source of life, and this is going to cause life to manifest in a specific way. And that means that we have control over everything that happens in this universe through our thoughts. Because when we create our thoughts, we create HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyochel in a certain levush, in a certain interpretation, in a certain translation of what it means to us. And based on that understanding, based on that translation, we're going to interact with him. And we're going to interact with reality. So we're dressing him up, and this is causing life. This is causing our experience. So the power is in our hands. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light can dress up in infinite ways. But how is it going to interact with us? Based on how we dress him up. How do we dress him up? With our thoughts, with our beliefs, with our understandings. And this is what we mean when we say every day in V'hoim Shema Tishmu, that if we are going to go down the right path, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu and all of nature is going to interact with us in a perfect way. And if we're going to go down the wrong path, and therefore our thoughts are going to lead us into realities that are difficult, that are conflicted, then all of nature is going to respond accordingly, because we are the consciousness of nature. So if you look at nature as if it's a big being, it's one big animal, so then we would say that the head of nature, where it thinks, is within the human minds. So according to how the human minds think, accordingly nature is either healthy or nature is not healthy. And this is what the psukim mean when they say, for example, Tnu oiz le'elokim, that the person is giving power to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do we give power to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Let's look at other pasuk that mentions the same word. Hashem oiz la'am yiten. Chazal say, what's oiz? Torah. So Tnu oiz le'elokim, give power to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through Torah, through wisdom. Because Elokim, nature, has tremendous power. But only when that power is harnessed properly does it actually manifest in our benefit. And the same where the pasuk says, Tzur Yelot Choteshi, that the koyach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kivyochel is tosh koyach. He doesn't have koyach. Why does he not have koyach? Because we've sucked nature dry of all its power. How? By thinking about it wrong, by covering it in a levush that's weak, that's not proper, that's not appropriate. And it's our job to build up that reality, to build up the nefesh, to build up the interactions that we have with other people, so that we can raise them to a place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets more power. And that's through wisdom, that's through recognizing the unity. So the Masechtas Eruvin was given for that purpose, and that's why Masechtas Eruvin is essentially one Masechta of Masechta Shabbos. It's just the longest Masechta. They split it up into two Masechtas. And it's about making Shabbos. How are we going to make Shabbos in this world, Olam HaPirud? By uniting all the different elements and by recognizing the place of everything that's here, so that we don't stumble upon it, so that we're not Chaz v'Shalom from the Rishoim, that the Pasuk says, Poshem Yikash Libam, but it should be Tzadikim Yelchu Bam, that we should know how to use all the different elements of life for their designed purpose. V'dover zeh, the concept of Eruvin, Tikna Shlomo HaMelech Alav HaSholem, Aboyne Beis HaMikdash. Shlomo HaMelech was the one who built the Beis HaMikdash, meaning that he built the ability for the Shechina to be represented in this world, because in his time is the time where Klal Yisrael had the most perfection they ever achieved, because the world was b'shleimus, and the wisdom was b'shleimus, and the recognition of the forces inside and outside of man and what they're supposed to accomplish was b'shleimus. So Shlomo HaMelech had the koyach to make from Rishus HaRabim and Rishus HaYochid. V'osa la Torah aznaim. He made aznaim la Torah, Rotzulemer Beis HaChizah, he made a handle. He made a handle so that people can relate to the Torah, so people can understand it, and people can have the ability to create Torah, to speak about the Torah in a way where what they're talking about becomes Torah itself, which is the concept of Torah Shebal Peh. That the understanding of man, how he understands the Torah, that itself is Torah. Even when he's not fully understanding the Torah, this is what's going to lead him eventually to the core of the Torah, to the Torah Lishma. So Shlomo HaMelech made aznaim la Torah letzolem Beis HaChizah. Why did he need a Beis HaChizah? Shemitzvos HaTorah kilo b'maaseh. The mitzvahs of the Torah are rituals that you do in action, in the Olam HaMaaseh. In Mishli, believe. All of Mishli speaks about the heart. All of Mishli is about Chokhmah, is about how can a person interpret the Mishalim of the Torah, which the Mishalim of the Torah are dressed up into mitzvahs maisius and to stories that happen. These Mishalim need to be interpreted in the Leiv so the person understands what are the remizes b'Leiv that the Torah is trying to teach us. How am I supposed to interact with reality based on these mitzvahs? So Mishli is b'Leiv she'remizes kol ha'masim she'b'Torah. Its meram is all the masim in the Torah v'amechuvim b'hem k'mo she'amri shal yodem odem oimed al divrei Torah. Through these Mishalim, through understanding these mitzvahs maisius and what the roim is b'Leiv, through that a person can understand the mechuven of that, why the Torah created these mitzvahs in the way that it did. To understand how can you practice all the mitzvahs of the Torah at the place and at the time that you are right now. And this is by understanding how to interpret life itself. Because life itself is a mashal. So Moshe Rabbeinu is representing to us life in words, so that we, the Medaber, can have a map of what it means to be alive, so that we can understand, so that we can create our spirit in the same formula, in the same setup, with the same koiches and the same forces, as life itself, as the being that we inhabit. And that's why the Torah has Ramach mitzvos aseh and Sheso mitzvos lo aseh, representing the human body, because the spirit, the Chelik HaMedaber, needs to learn how to animate this body in a way that is fully compliant with its nature, in a way that's fully compliant with the koiches that the Elokim placed within that body. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu created that body, b'tzelem u'v'dmus. So in order for a person to be able to correlate his spirit with the actual reality of the body, he needs words and letters, which is the language of the spirit, in order to explain to the spirit how to correlate with the body. What is the real meaning of this being? And what does it really require? And what does it need to believe? And how does it need to feel in order to get the most efficient and effective product from this machine? And what's the product that we create? It's machshava dibra ma'aseh. So the nefesh, when it's in its good zone, when it's in the right zone, it's creating good machshavas and good diburim and good ma'ases. And when it's off, when it's mikulkal, when it's not in the right setting, then it creates machshavas, diburim, and ma'ases that are painful to the self and to other, because it's not aligned with life, it's not aligned with the truth. And the areas that are not true, the areas that are not real, they cause friction, they cause pain, because they're not aligned with reality. So the Torah is here to be merames belev, but the remes belev cannot go from one generation to the other. Because if you have one generation that doesn't understand the remazim belev, then the whole Torah would be lost. And therefore, in order for the Torah to have longevity, in order for the Torah to have nitzchias, which is the midah of Moshe is the midah of Netzach that makes sure that the Torah can have nitzchias, the Torah had to dress itself up into maisim. Maisim can be given over even to generations that have no understanding. Maisim are the carriers, are the kelim, that can travel from generation to generation and give over the wisdom to those who need to know it. So essentially, Moshe Rabbeinu's technique, like the pasuk says, in Mishle, Ani chochma shechanti arma, that the chochma is shoichen in the arm, it's making a trick. And what's the trick? The trick is that it scares the people who don't understand what it's trying to do into complying with the chochma, even though they don't have any shaykhs to the chochma. So they carry the chochma like a chamar carries a book from one place to the other. So too, many generations carry the chochma from one generation to the other, and they have no access to it themselves. They're just carrying it so that their children, so that the future generations can have it. But the real meaning of the Torah, the real meaning of the chochma, the meaning of the luchas rishonis, where it says cheres ala luchas al tikra cheres ala cheres, is the real meaning of these things. Because when a person understands the meaning, then the action gets done by itself. What does it mean the action gets done by itself? It means that the meaning, the satisfaction, the realization that's within the mitzvah gives such an excitement that the action gets done by that excitement, and there's still a lot of excitement left to do other things with. So the mitzvah gives you more than it takes. So like it says by the Aron, when the Levim were carrying it, the Aron noises noisav, the Aron, the Kiddush of the Aron, was carrying the people that are carrying it. The same thing, the mitzvahs, when properly understood, they animate the body. This is known from the Kedushas Levi, the Bedit Rav, that already days before doing a mitzvah, he would already start shivering and convulsing and just waiting to be able to manifest that mitzvah. And that's because the seichel of the mitzvah, the kedusha of the mitzvah, the understanding of the mitzvah was already cooking in him. He wanted to manifest, he wanted to have a close, deep relationship with that chochmah and ingrain that in his being, ingrain that in his consciousness so that it stays there forever and ever. So that's the koach of Mishli, that it's here to explain to us the depth of the Torah, to explain to us the real meaning of why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want us to do the things that we do? Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell us about His glory in physical ritual and things that seem to be so far removed from the goal? And that's only because it has to be in a language that we can relate to. And we are in Olam HaMaaseh, we relate to Maasim, we give them importance, and therefore the Torah will dress up to where we are. And it comes down all the way to Asiyah, to allow us, people who are steeped in Maasim, people who have not recognized the importance of the context of life and are more concerned with the content of life, so that we can also have a shaykhis, so that we can also start climbing that ladder, so that we can eventually get to a place of meaning, to a place of understanding, to a place of realization. So that's the purpose of having this explanation, so that we can go deeper. So he's saying that the way that a person would ingrain within his being the realizations of the mitzvahs, that way is through building a mikdash, to building a Beis HaMikdash, meaning all the different melachas that they did in order to build a Beis HaMikdash, those are exactly the tools you're going to need in order to build a mishkan in your heart, in order to build that kedusha, that realization that what you're doing and what's happening to you is the purpose of life itself. It's nowhere else. It's hiding in plain sight. It's not only hiding in plain sight, it's hiding behind our sight. It's the source of it. So when a person has a thought, as meaningless as it seems to him, as far as the olamis are concerned, as far as the Kadosh Baruch Hu is concerned, as far as life itself is concerned, the most important process of life happened. Because thought is the first levush. The driver of thought is will, is ratzon. And those are the deepest malachim. Those creating malachim of ratzon are the malachim that actually drive our being, that drive our machshava dibra ma'aseh. And that's why ratzonos are so important. All our unfulfilled desires, everything that we want and we can't have, it doesn't just disappear. It becomes part of our nefesh that wants. It stays open. It's an open file. And this is why it's so important for people to be aware of what they want and to control what they want, so that you don't get yourself into places where you want things that you can't have. Because there's nothing more detrimental to the power of the will, to the koyach of the ratzon, than showing to our ratzon again and again that what you want doesn't matter. Because you know what happens eventually is that he doesn't want so much anymore. He's afraid to want. And when a person can't want, so the very driver of his personality, the very driver of his being, is being tamed down. And this is what happened to us in Golus. The main concept of Golus is to break the will of the people. And the will of the people needs to be broken when the will of the people was going in directions where it couldn't have been fulfilled anyways. People just wanted other people's things, and people wanted things that are not even physically available to them. But they didn't have control over their will. So Golus breaks the will, and when you break a person's will, you break his power. You break his ability to designate his own destiny, to manifest his reality. So all of us suffer from a broken will. Our will has been broken. The only way we can fix our will is to start aligning with reality. It's to surrender to what's real. Because when we surrender to what's real through the Chachma, our will can dress up appropriately so that it can manifest its desires. Because in the true essence, we really want, our real desire, our real will, is to do what we were created to do. We have no other will. Mima Akif, who is stopping us from wanting that and staying on that lane so that we can get what we want? Asar Shabisa v'shivud Malchus. Meaning that the Asar Shabisa is the Yetzira, that inside of us we're already sour, we're already bitter, we're already suffered. And it's difficult for us to forgive, it's difficult for us to realize that, yeah, we suffered because we took it the wrong way. Circumstances of life are what they are, but we shouldn't have taken it like that. We shouldn't have hurt ourselves this way. We shouldn't have allowed the pain, the suffering, the negativity to go so deep within our being. So that can restore our ratzon. If a person could really do tshuva, to understand his heart, to understand what's really happening inside of him, to understand the pain that he's caused to that being that lives inside of him, out of lack of knowledge, out of misunderstanding, out of following other people's advice, out of believing things that shouldn't be believed, that even on a basic level, a human being that's aware, that's conscious, that's kind, shouldn't have allowed himself to believe those things. But once they're in our system, they're aggravating our will, they're aggravating our desire. And that causes disease within the soul, within the being. It causes negativity, it causes bitterness. It causes rejection. And all these things, at their very source, are because we lack understanding. We lack understanding of our own heart. We lack understanding of how we behave, how we function, why we feel the way that we feel. And once it gets into us, once we become twisted in that way, so then everything else gets painted with that brush. And it becomes hard for us to distinguish the source of our problem. Where is it all coming from? But at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates what happens to us. He put this thing in motion, and it plays out the way that it plays out. But our response, the way that we take it, the way that we understand it, that's us. That's our bechira. Hakol b'dei shemayim chutz mira shemayim. Meaning everything that will happen to you the way that, that it's going to happen. But the yira shemayim, the seriousness, the recognition that what you think matters, what you feel matters, the way that you go about life matters, your relationship with reality matters, because this is what causes reality to be the way that it is. That recognition, that's you. That's not b'dei shemayim. That's the very definition of who you are. That's your soul expressing itself in this life. What does all this mean to you? So if you have a weaker soul, if a person has a very shallow view of life, so a little negativity can tip him over. Even though everything in his life is perfect, like we see by Haman. Everything in his life is working, he's got it all going for him, and there's one thing he doesn't like, v'chol zeh einenu shoveh li. He doesn't want any of it anymore. Anybody else in the entire kingdom of Achashverosh, 127 countries, would be happy to have what he has. He's the most powerful man in the nation. But to him, that's worthless. Why? Because he has such a strong magnet for negativity that just a tiny bit of negativity covers his entire view of life. His sensors for negative are so strong, and his sensors for positive are so weak, that the tiniest negative will twist his entire life upside down. And the opposite goes for a tzaddik. He has such a strong magnet for good. He's so convinced that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good. He's so convinced that everything that happens in life is good, that even though all of his life is negative, he doesn't see it. And there's a lot of famous stories like that. The story with Reb Zusha, where his rabbi sent somebody to him to figure out how to deal with poverty. And the Reb Zusha had nothing. But the Reb Zusha couldn't even understand why they sent anybody to him to learn anything about how to deal with negative, because he claimed he never had anything negative happen to him in his lifetime. So he's the wrong address for that. So that's how Reb Zusha sees life. That's how Reb Zusha sees HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how Reb Zusha appreciates existence. The fact that I exist outweighs all the negatives that come with existence. And the reason for that is because the one that put me into existence is so capable, it's so obvious to me, I can see it everywhere, the edus are everywhere that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very capable, that I surrender my distinction between good and bad to him. My mind is not qualified to distinguish between good and bad, because life is too complicated for us to follow. So I'm going to use my mind just to agree with whatever it is that he's doing, so that I can experience his chesed, so that I can experience the kindness of life, because there's so much kindness. So that's where I'm going to connect to. That's where I'm going to get my life from. That's where I'm going to spend my time, drinking up his kindness. And this is what we have in the davening, this is what we have in Tehillim, this is what we have everywhere that we recite on a regular basis, all the different mizmorim and all the different piyutim. It's all to remind us the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu so that we can connect to it. Because wherever we connect, like we said before, that's the malbush that we're dressing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in. And whichever way we dress him up, that's how he's going to interact with us. We have that choice, we have that power. So as soon as we dress him up a certain way, we've now created an interaction. We've now created a way that he's gonna deal with us. And this happens in all the religions. All the religions, you'll find that a person believes that he should do this, he shouldn't do that, and then whatever he doesn't do according to what he thinks he shouldn't do, he blames all his pain on those things. And he blames all his pleasure for whatever he thinks he does right. But the other guy believes completely differently, but he still does the same dance. And this is because of how we're dressing HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be. This is not the real HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The only one that could see the real HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a Navi. We don't see the real HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We dress him up the way that we assume he is, based on what we've been told, based on what we've thought, based on what we've learned. And it's not real. It's only real to us. But it's real enough that reality will now be based on that. And not only the basic reality. If a person is mizboinen, it's very easy to see that human interaction is based on how you dress life, how you dress reality. So our thoughts are going to create our interactions. That's simple. So there we can easily see that if we have better thoughts, better understandings, better ways of looking at life, human interaction will go to a much deeper and higher level. We will be able to understand each other and help each other in ways that's currently not possible. But the Torah is not happy with that alone. The Torah says it goes even deeper. That even the tzemeach, even the chai, even the doimen will respond to a change in human vibration, to a change in human energy and human thought. Everything will be different. Just like your body will be different when you think differently, just like your body will be different if you're standing in the middle of a forest at night and there's a lion roaring, your body will have some changes based on that event. And the same thing if you're next to the person you love the most in the world and you look into their eyes and you feel completely secure, that's going to change your physiology. And this is all through your thoughts. It's not the actual event that's causing it. It's the thought that you're having in response to that event that's causing it. So every thought that you have is somewhere between those two extremes. A lion roaring in the darkness of the night, or a deep love and security. And every thought is somewhere on that scale. And it's causing a physiological change in your body, but it's also causing a physiological change in the entire nature of life, through the klal, through the collective consciousness, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we have so much control over because we control the relationship. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't change. Ani Hashem lo shinisi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the same. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way that he was, the way that he will be, nothing changed. So how do we have a Navi that one time HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so happy and he's so generous and he's so kind, and other times he's angry and he's talking about revenge and he's talking about suffering? How could it be the same HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It's because the people have dressed HaKadosh Baruch Hu differently. And when the people dress HaKadosh Baruch Hu differently, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is different to us. The events happen accordingly. And that's what the Navi was there to tell us. The Navi was there to gauge our real relationship with reality. Not the way that people imagine. And throughout Navi, you'll see many times that Nevi'ah Sheker would come to Klal Yisrael and tell them, no, everything is fine, everything is going to be fine, you got nothing to worry about. But they were not really gauging the relationship that people have with reality. They were just trying to gain whatever it is they were trying to gain. But the Navi had access to the truth. The Navi said, your relationship with reality is off. And if you continue going down this path, pain will sure follow. And the same thing at times when Klal Yisrael is the way that they are. So then the Navi can tap into a truth that is sweet, a truth that is kind, a truth that is helpful to every single human being. And that's all because we're in charge of this relationship. It's up to us. Every thought that we have affects this relationship. It affects this reality. And as small and as insignificant as it seemed to us now, after we pass from this world, this is all we have. This is all we are. This is the spiritual side of life. In order for us to be able to appreciate the spiritual side of life the way that it deserves to be appreciated, we need to develop the areas in our brain that relate to the spiritual. And to develop areas of the brain, we need to spend time with that. We need to spend time thinking, contemplating. And this is why we have davening. This is why we have learning. What is it pretty much, if you sum it up in 2 words? Gemilas chasodim, being kind, and wisdom, Talmud Torah keneged kulam. To understand life, to understand what it means when you think, what it means when you do, what it means when you speak. Because these things are very real. These things have a tremendous impact on our lives. The way that we feel right now is based on 1,000,000 words that we've heard before. This is how we know how to feel right now. So every thought, it dresses HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're in the depth of the spiritual reality and you're creating it, you're manifesting it. And a thought that's off, a thought that creates separation, a thought that causes olam apirud, can result in words that create within other people pirud. So the more time a person spends contemplating these things, the more he develops. Just like a person can develop any other subject, the physical subjects or other subjects, you go to college, you spend a lot of time thinking about a subject and understanding it, and it becomes very developed. So Klal Yisrael has a Torah so that we can contemplate the spiritual every day. Yomam v'layla. So that the areas in our brain that are responsible for understanding what it means to be a human being, what it means to be alive, what it means to think, what it means to feel, and how that's going to affect reality, those need to be very developed. We need to have a very subtle understanding of these things so that we can distinguish good from bad, so that we can have the das that's mavdil between tov and ra, so that we don't chas v'sholem create ra. Because it's very natural for us to create ra. We think of ourselves and we think, oh, we're kind, we're good, we would never create ra. But if we were to take, it might not even be a fine brush, even any brush, to look at what we've done and what we've said just over the last 24 hours, there are plenty of things in there that are not clean. Because habitually we do this. We don't recognize the real meaning of things. We don't recognize that taking away somebody's mood, taking away somebody's smile, taking away somebody's energy is the equivalent of death. It's taking away his ability to manifest. And he's never going to get it back. Once that day is over, it's gone, never coming back for eternity. Days are precious because that's all we have. And the way we manifest those days, the way that we create in those days, this is what makes our future. This is what makes our reality. This is what Keviyochel gives HaKadosh Baruch Hu the ability to interact with life. We are giving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu access to the life that He created. He placed our minds at the doorway, saying HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have the power now, it's in the hand of Klal Yisrael. How do we think? How do we understand? What do we think life means? He created it. He knows what it means. But He doesn't interact with it the way that it really means. He interacts with it the way that we think it means. And when there's nobody in the world that understands HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then Keviyochel HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asleep. And many, many years He's been asleep. And that's why the pasuk says in Tehillim, "Vayikatz keyoshen Hashem kegiber misroinen meyoin vayach tzorev ocher." When does that happen? When an individual wakes up first. When an individual wakes up, Keviyochel HaKadosh Baruch Hu wakes up. When there's nobody in the world that's awake, everybody is asleep, everybody is in a tardaima, nobody understands the Torah, nobody understands the real meaning of it, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asleep. His interaction with life is like a dream. Weird things are happening, it has no meaning, it has no feeling in a dream where a person is running and he can hardly put one foot in front of the other. It's like the whole world is trying to hold him back from doing whatever it is he's trying to do in his dream. Because in a dream, you don't have control over yourself. It's just happening. The imagination is just causing a storyline to develop. And the same thing happens in life. When Klal Yisrael is not dovik in the truth, when Klal Yisrael doesn't really understand what they themselves are representing, then life just happens like in a dream. And most of the time, this dream is really a nightmare. Because only through the intelligence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only through having the Roshei Ador awake and tapped into the truth, does the intelligence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu light up the reality the way that it's supposed to, so that everything makes sense, so that people who want to do good know how to do it. And they can tap into the right areas of their mind in order to get the appropriate experience. But today, the only areas in the brain that we develop relate to external phenomena. Making money, to doing physical things, to being busy all day and not to have time to do anything else. That's the basic structure of our society. So as long as only those areas of the brain get developed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot interact with life. Yoiv Chochmah L'Chakimin. You can only give Chochmah to those people who are investing their time wisely in order to gain access to the Chochmah. But people who don't develop those areas of the brain, they don't develop those kelim, they only develop areas that are for practical use. So then that's all the only life they have. They can survive. They become experts at surviving. But then, when they're done surviving, what's left? The kli went for as long as it can go, and it was in good shape. That's nice. But where's the oir? Where's the purpose? Where's the meaning? So that was the avodah of Shlomo HaMelech, to give Klal Yisrael access to that, so that the Torah is not like a pot of hot water that nobody can touch, but it should have aznaim, it should have handles that people can get close and people can deal with it. V'isa matana tov v'yesh li v'ezgenozai, that's called Shabbos, shedov v'zeh matana, she'ena al yedei esrisa de l'sata dig mesyantiv d'Yisrael mekatshel zmanim. So he's saying that Shabbos is a gift. It's a matana from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The matana from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that He created you into a reality that has a Yom Shekileh Shabbos at the end of it. That's the matana. Through this matana of Shabbos, all of life becomes a matana. Because if Shabbos was not there at the end of life, then life wouldn't be a matana. Because life is difficult, life is a struggle. Only because we know that at the end of life, Shavas v'yinofash, b'yoyim aniach Hashem alekecha lecho me'otzvecha mirogzecha v'edascha akosha, that you don't have to work anymore, that you can realize and recognize the truth in a way that it's miskabel al alev, in a way that it can never be forgotten. Only then does life become a gift. Only then does life become meaningful. And that's the matana tov sheyesh li b'veiz genozai, like it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the oir from Sheshes Me'Bereshis Lechatchila, and he saw that the Rishon are not kedai for that light, so he was going as the light. He had to hide it. And at the end of the tikkun, when the world will come back to being b'shleimus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be megala that light, and that's the light of Shabbos, the light that's gonus. And the light that's gonus is not gonus outside of us, it's gonus inside of us. It's the root of everything. At the very root of everything, at the very root of your perception, there's a peace, there's a calmness, there's a shavas v'yinofash. That's your nefesh itself. Before it covers itself up in all types of understandings and beliefs and thoughts and ideas and struggles and perceptions, all these things are covering your nefesh, and all these things relate to the avodah that's happening in the Yimei Achol, where we're changing your nefesh, we're moving it around, we're implementing different areas of construction inside your being, inside your reality. But when the balance comes, when a person properly understands, like it says, Talmidei Chachomim are b'bchinas Shabbos all week long, because this nefesh, just like in Zman there's a time of Shabbos, where there's a time of rest, a time of recognition, a time of menucha, so too in nefesh, there are nefoshes that have achieved that type of menucha, that have achieved their recognition, they have achieved their gola prutis, and they could live in a reality that's a reality of menucha. It's a reality of recognition of what life really means. And they're ahead of their time. They're tasting of something that most of us will only be able to taste after Mashiach comes. But every Shabbos we have an en olam habo. We have a moment to contemplate what life really means in its perfect state. What will happen after we're done with all these cheshbonis and all these different tikkunim and all these different birurim? What is life really going to look like? Because it looks that way already. We're just not there yet. We just haven't recognized it. So if we knew how to control ourselves, how to control our minds in order to get into that state, then we could have Shabbos, we could have Olam Haba right now. There's nothing that's holding us back other than our lack of knowledge and understanding. So that's the Matana Tova that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to us, that doesn't need this Serisa de Lesata, because it comes from beyond, it comes as part of creation. Kfi Shlemes Masayim Lesata, the Yontiv, it gets Kedusha from Klal Yisrael. It gets the Kedusha in accordance with the Kedusha of Klal Yisrael. So too the Yom Tovim get their Kedusha. Mashenken Shabbos is Kavua V'Kaima. It doesn't have to do with the avoid of Klal Yisrael. It's the reality of what Hashem created. Whether we recognize it or we don't recognize it, the Kedusha of Shabbos is there. But the Kedusha of the Yom Tovim, which is the Kedusha of the Nisim, of bringing in the Ashpah from beyond, this is the avoid of Klal Yisrael. And when Klal Yisrael locks themselves into Greek philosophy, they lock themselves into logical thinking, the way that we think today, in a way that's not consistent with reality and the way that it works. So then Nisim cannot happen for us, because we said it can't happen. That's how powerful we are. If we say it can't happen, then it can't happen. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not interact with us in a way that is contrary to our belief. Only through having Moshe Rabbeinu represent an honest belief could Kaviyachal HaKadosh Baruch Hu come to Paroi and argue with him about his beliefs. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself never comes to Paroi. Paroi remains Paroi. So if we hook up with Paroi, we believe what Paroi believes, then we're going to experience the same experience. And only if Moshe Rabbeinu will come and tell us and teach us, then will we know that we're wrong. Otherwise, we can remain a Paroi. Nothing in this world is suddenly going to come and tell us that we're wrong. We're only going to find out when it's too late. So it's up to us to ask the right questions of what does it really mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created human beings the way that He did? What does that mean? And the whole Torah is here to explain that. And when the Torah explains that, then you're getting access to real Torah. Then you're getting the sichlis of the Torah, the way that Shlomo HaMelech learned the Torah. So the Yom Tovim depend on the behavior of Klal Yisrael. Masha'enken Shabbos ze kavir v'kaima lekach rak livnei Yisrael asher chelek Hashem amoy. Shabbos only belongs to Klal Yisrael. Why? Because Klal Yisrael were created for this purpose. Yisrael oliv machshavet tchila, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I want to have a perfect society. I want to have a world with creatures that can recognize my malchus, that can recognize how I created everything perfectly, that can have the wisdom and the heart to tune into the true rhythm of life, to recognize how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give, how much He wants to be involved in this world, how much He wants to create over here, because He went through this tremendous trouble. He put in place so much, such complexity in order to make this happen. So if Klal Yisrael gets to that place, then the world has a purpose. And if not, like we see by Matan Torah, that says if Klal Yisrael wouldn't be Mekabel the Torah, the world would go back to Tohu Vavohu. What does it mean the world goes back to Tohu Vavohu? If you want to know what Tohu Vavohu looks like, just look at the world right now. That's what Tohu Vavohu looks like. And when Klal Yisrael didn't want to be Mekabel the Torah, the threat was, you're going to end up looking like those people in 2019. You better listen. So Tohu Vavohu means living in a world that doesn't come together. It has no logic. It's just random. Stuff is just happening. And obviously, this world has a system, but it doesn't have a system when we don't understand it, because we are creating with our thoughts. And when we're creating with our thoughts and we're blind to what we're creating, we're causing havoc. We're causing problems. We're causing ourselves difficulties that are not necessary. We're dressing up HaKadosh Baruch Hu with begodim tzoyim, kivyochel, with dirty clothes, because we misunderstand him. So just like Iver is megashish ba'afela, and he causes things to happen, he gets hurt, he bumps into places, and things turn over, and everything is going wrong. Why? Because he doesn't see where he's going. The same way spiritually. When we're not conscious, when we're not aware of what we're causing, we can cause damage. And we cause damage. It's not a question of if and when and why. It's something that happens every single day. Varaya, life is not perfect. It's not perfect because HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a mistake in how he created. HaKadosh Baruch Hu never makes mistakes. It's not perfect because we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to live it. We don't know how to think about it. We don't know how to approach the truth. We don't know how to approach other people. We don't know how to approach ourselves. All this is in the programming. All the lack is in the programming. So Shabbos is kavod v'kaima, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu created it for Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael represents the perfect society. It doesn't have to be Klal Yisrael. The Chasidim Esoilam, they belong to that society also. Why? Because the main nekuda is to be a chosid. The main nekuda is that the heart should have a milas alev. The main nekuda is that a person should realize that he is not an individual. He is part of a collective consciousness that involves everybody else. And every thought that he has affects him, affects his family, affects his friends, and affects all of Klal Yisrael. Because he just dressed up HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He just created the interaction between himself and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Think of a person that lives in a city a couple of thousand years ago, and he says, I really hate this other country or whatever. I'm going to go and I'm going to start fighting with them. The people in the city, they're all very aware that once people fight, everybody in the city can get hurt. Once there's going to be a war, even though only one guy instigated it, everybody can get hurt. So when there's a spiritual war, when we create a war, when we create a resistance to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everybody in our city will suffer. And the city is just life. The city is everybody. The city is everything. Because we are one being. We're one collective being. We're one collective consciousness. And the Torah again and again shows us that our actions, our thoughts, our understandings are what cause life from the deepest place. And because it's the collective and we're so fractured, so we have no power. Because the collective only has power as it unites, just like the individual only has power when he unites. So the collective is only as strong as all the individuals, and it's up to individuals to unite and to create the appropriate reality so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unity can shine within us. So that's why Shabbos is for Klal Yisrael, for the time when people will know how to be. V'hainu kechol ha'masim in Knesset Yisrael, aval etzem avayim tzodaktem atiten loi, ki mitzad hayichad hagomar ha'mispashad en keitze ha'shvisem masim, v'zeh echizeh l'divrei Torah al yidei mishli. So it says that the Maisim are here to improve the existence of Knesset Yisrael, to improve the existence of Klal Yisrael, to improve our reality. But the Etzem Avaya, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is Shoichel Lamala, you can't touch him. There's nothing you can do to ruin anything for him, and there's nothing you can do to help him in any way. So when we're helping the manifested reality. We're helping the Shekhinah. We're helping ourselves. We're helping everything that's alive. And Mishlei, the Sichlius of the Maisim, they teach us how all these Maisim allow us to gain access to a deeper manifestation of the divine, to the deeper manifestation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is himself beyond anything that we can touch, beyond anything that we can hurt. But when we don't bring the Shefa in the appropriate way, through the appropriate machshavas to this world, then the Shefa cannot manifest properly. So our avodah, through our maisim, is to be able to tap into higher sichlius, to deeper sichlius. Through these rituals, through these avodas, we're creating kalim so that we can have a deeper access to the avaya, to the seichel that's running the world. And through that, he can manifest into this life. And this was the purpose of the Sefer Mishli, to explain the sichlius that's within the mitzvahs.